Eh, Rob, bienvenido.
Thank you. Yes. Um, it's a great honor and pleasure being here.
Gracias. Gracias por esperar. Estábamos dando un poco de tiempo y este evento se hace en alianza con Paredro Podcast, porque lo que este capítulo luego lo pueden escuchar y lo pueden compartir. Así es que, Rob, yo quisiera que comenzáramos de entrada con la puerta de la entrada, digamos, que es el título de tu libro. Porque no es una frase que leemos por primera vez. De hecho, ya la hemos visto en otros contextos de variados registros, pero tú la llevas hasta las últimas consecuencias. Y aquí ya hay algo metido y es el contraste entre el arte de ser humano en vez de la ciencia de ser humano. Entonces quisiera que nos contaras por esta selección.
Why art and why not the science? Well, because the first is an expression of the truth and the other an expression of the lie. There is no sign of being human. And I guess that everybody will understand. I mean, just take simple examples of um, things which are happening in your life. I mean, the basic questions. A question like, who am I? It's an important question. Science will not give an answer. The question, what am I doing with my life? Science will not give an answer. More troublesome, something terrible happens in your life, right? You lose somebody who's very dear to you. Science will not give an answer. So, I mean, this is, no, we can go to Wittgenstein, who in his Tractatus at the very end writes that, so Nietzsche was an engineer, he was a scientist, he was a philosopher, and at the end of the Tractatus, he writes, even if we would have touched upon, no, even if we would have solved all scientific problems, we will not even have touched upon the questions of life. The questions of life, the questions about meaning, the questions about values are beyond the world of science. So it's a big mistake, first of all, to think that science can deal with it. But look, I don't want to take away your questions, but one of the things we talk about is the consequences of a university system which thinks that the scientific paradigm is the paradigm of truth, and that the humanities and philosophies and history should all be part of that paradigm, which basically comes down to the fact that you're destroying the humanity because the paradigm of science can never be the paradigm of humanity. Okay, even more simple, you have to make a distinction what kind of truth we are talking about. Well, yes, there is the scientific truth. The scientific truth is this is a bottle and in it it's H2O, which we call water. Right? But science can nothing say about a metaphysical truth. And it's in the realm of the metaphysical truth we can possibly find an answer to the questions of our life, including how to become a human being.
I'm thinking, Rob, I will switch to English if that's okay. I'm thinking, Rob, about the,
Everybody understands you? Okay.
I'm thinking about the importance of this uprising of neuroscience and neuroscientific studies, for example. And in my case, I'm a literature teacher, reading promoter. And now that I've been reading studies about neuroscience, connected with literary reading and conscience, etc., I've been truly surprised because it's like we've been on the right side for all the time. Like we finally can say it's said by science because we all of us have this aunt or uncle which said, "Oh, you're the reader. You have no idea about the world. You're just wasting your time reading poetry." And then you kept saying, "No, no, no. Science says the opposite." in a way, it's like humanities, perhaps, when you think of it to transform reality. Do you think that in a way it has like something bigger to grab to?
Well, but don't you think already that it's a sad thing that we want to, that we are showing that, well, but science says it as well. I mean, look, I mean, let's keep our self-respect, right? And just explain to people that science is an extremely important phenomenon. It's a great gift of mankind that we have something like science. But again, it's something different than when it comes down to the world of the humanities, philosophy, etc., etc., etc. Now, why are they important? Or why is culture in general important? Okay, well, two things. First of all, the humanities are in principle nothing than the art of reading, the art of understanding. Um, and it's this art of understanding which is extremely important for us because again we are dealing with those questions which are so very difficult to find an answer to, right? Um, the art of being human relates to the fact that we all realize that we have a kind of double nature. On the one hand, yes, we are like animals, right? We need water, we need food, we have our instincts. Uh, Freud would say there's a death instinct, there's a sex instinct, there's the aggression instinct, and we know how terrible we can be, right? We can kill people, we can rape people, we can all those terrible things which we now see expressed in those terrible wars which are going on. But we also have our spiritual nature. We know about truth, we know about love, we know about goodness, we know about beauty, we know about forgiveness, we know about compassion. And so we know about values which are transcendental to us, which are the moral and spiritual values. And we have to realize that the essence of el arte de ser humanos is to make the nobility of spirit, noblesse de spiritu, to make it our own. Why? Because you want your life to be meaningful. And because it was one thing that we human beings simply impossibly cannot deal with. And that's the phenomenon of the emptiness of our life. If you wake up in the morning and you look into the mirror and you think about yourself, my goodness, what am I doing? What's the purpose of my life? Why does it? The only solution is commit suicide or try to escape from yourself, right? That's the only solution. So, given the fact that we have to still that we have those questions and that we are on this quest to find to make our own life meaningful and to do the right thing. This is why we need the world of culture. This is why we need the world of humanity. And this is why we have to stop the brainwashing, because it is a brainwashing going on to tell us that you have to do something useful, that you have to make sure that science will tell you, etc. It's brainwashing, and it's a terrible crime. It's a terrible crime. So one of the things I do in the book is first of all that we're dealing with organized amnesia. If you want to understand, at least in my part of the world, Western Europe and the United States of America, why so many terrible things going on that relates to the fact that there are many things that we did not learn the lesson. And the second thing we are dealing with, and that's even the bigger crime, is the organized stupidity. And I bluntly say it's dealing with organized stupidity because what are we doing to our education? What are we telling the younger generation? What are we are not giving to them? And I call it organized because I'm deeply convinced that if people would be a little bit less stupid, it will have a massive impact on our political class. Most of them will not be elected anymore. It will have an impact on our economy because a lot of things are not bought anymore. It will so it's time to stand up. We need a little revolution anymore again, and we have to regain our lives. That's the thing to be done.
There's something about memory and about learning from history. Today, today it's been 80 years from the disembarkment of Normandy, for example, and you have a quite important referral to the uprising of fascism in Germany and, and to the reactions of Weber and Husserl and many others. Did you have the sense that you were reading what we are already living? I mean, how much are we repeating ourselves? Because there are many things that you read that were read in 1924, 1935 that seems to be written yesterday.
Well, okay, so here's the thing, Rich, the book I published before, unfortunately, I mean, published in Spanish, but unfortunately not that here. I'm sure Pingel Renwaard will get the reference. It's about the Paracompagnie Esta Era, and the subtitle in English is On Fascism and Humanism. The first essay is entitled The Eternal Return of Fascism. And I wrote it in 2010 because of what I could see happening in my country, the Netherlands. And I knew that I detected the return of fascism in my own country, 2010. The whole political class, the academic class, I mean, the book became a huge success, but the political class and the academic class never forgave me that I could say these terrible things about the Netherlands. We, the Netherlands, unfortunately, I was right and they were wrong because the fascist movement is now everywhere. And why did I call the essay The Eternal Return of Fascism? It was based on some insights of two great novelists, again, not the scientist, not the sociologist, but the novelist Thomas Mann and Albert Camus were independent of each other in 1947. Camus in La Peste, right? This great novel of him, right at the end of the book. It can take 10 years, 50 years, 70 years, but it will return. This virus of fascism will return. Thomas Mann the same thing. Also in 1947, in a lecture he gave on Nietzsche in the experience of our time, at the end of the lecture he says, let's not make the mistake, the war is over, but fascism did not disappear. And 7 years before he gave a warning to the Americans, he said, Americans, let me tell you, if fascism will ever come to America, it will come in the name of freedom. Our fascist party in the Netherlands is a party for freedom. The second fascist party, we have two fascist parties, they are growing, is a party for democracy. So yes, and then when you read history, the only conclusion is, everything has been said before, but we forgot it, amnesia, we didn't learn the lessons of it, stupidity, and there we are. And there we are. And, why is it that, because that's, why is that, noblesse oblige, right? When you have certain positions in society, it comes with responsibility, right? Why is it that so many people in powerful positions in the world of politics, media, education, did not and are not accepting their responsibility? Because it's quite interesting. On February 18, 1933, Winston Churchill, it's not in my book, I only discovered it later. Winston Churchill, the great Winston Churchill, who Hitler, February 18th, so Hitler already was in power. Mussolini was there already for a long time. He gave a big lecture, I think in the Royal Albert Hall or something like that. You can find it on YouTube, so you can check it. He says, Mussolini is the genius of our time, and it's the fascism we need to get out of this. Churchill. February 1933. Freud, in 35, still sends a book of him to Mussolini with the dedication, Il Duce, you are the cultural hero of our time. So I can forgive them, but it says something about what a huge attraction the fascist movement was for Europe coming out of World War One, with all the misery, all the poverty, all the problems, etc., etc., etc. And there was this movement presenting, as a kind of new religion to save the whole world, right? And even even Freud and even Church wanted to believe it for a while. We are supposed to know better. We know this. We know that that's a false religion. We know that those people who take this motto are the false prophets. But again, for some reasons, we have forgotten, which it's the only explanation that what happened last Sunday in Mexico, where the success of Mr. Obrador won with a landslide the elections, and she will be copy-pasting Obrador, why Trump can win the elections, God forbid, but he can win the elections, and why in my country now Mr. Wilders is in control of the government, what we see in Hungary, etc. So maybe the Renaissance should come here of Colombia. I don't know, but listen, I want to say this in public. Evelyn and I, my beloved, we are here for the first time. We are here now for 1.5 day. We have never seen a country with bookshops and a book culture at any other place in the world. You are the most privileged people on the planet when it comes down to the world of culture. And listen, be the conquistadores of the 21st century. Please come and conquer us and whatever. Because it's again in the United States of America, in the greater Los Angeles, which is enormous, there's only one bookshop. In whole Washington D.C., the District of Columbia, only 2 bookshops. I mean, and in my country, the Netherlands is not much better. But again, try to imagine, based on things we just discussed, what happens to a society where there is no book culture anymore, and where everybody starts to believe this nonsense that with artificial intelligence and with technology and with more science and even more science, all will be fine. It's a fundamental lie.
Regarding our book culture, where I could ask you about that, but I will be jumping to the last study. So I'll leave it there when you bring this beautiful fragment from Kafka. So we will be finishing with that.
Oh yeah.
But hearing you, what you said, and then looking at my notes, there's from the beginning of the book, there's a very important call you make to connecting with these values, with these atemporal values, such as compassion, beauty, and justice. And then you bring in another wonderful chapter this review of the Uber Pathos of Carrera, which he also talks about values. And Carrera talks about truth, love, faith, and eternity. But those seem to be the antonyms of everything that culture demands from our young kids, for example, from social media, for example. So what it tends to be when I mean, you write it, and we all agree, and we agree on the fact that it sounds provocative, sounds like a challenge, which I agree to, of course.
But maybe some support and help is coming out of Hollywood. You're surprised. But let me explain. I'm sure that also here last summer, many of you must have seen the movie Barbie and the movie Oppenheimer. I saw them both. I love them. And I'm probably one of the few intellectuals who are deeply impressed by the movie Barbie. Because the movies came out after I had published the book, otherwise I would have referred to it. But what's the secret of the movie Barbie? You may remember that Maggie Robbie, the quintessential Barbie, the most beautiful Barbie, at a certain moment when they have the party with all the girls, at a certain moment screams out over a text. So has anybody who has been thinking about that lately? The music stops. It's the most horrifying thing she could ever see, because we are Barbies, right? We are beautiful. We are here to enjoy life. Everybody should be like us, beautiful, sexy. But it's the moment that she starts the process of becoming human. Because one of the quintessence of being human is to realize we are mortal. We are not puppets. At a certain moment we will die. And we have to deal with it. And science can help us. Medical science can help us to have cures from terrible diseases or whatever, but it cannot deal with the question what to do with my life. Okay. They have the movie Oppenheimer, right? So we know that on the 16th of July, very early in the morning, in a desert in New Mexico called the Journey of the Dead. Early in the morning, you got the explosion of the Trinity bomb, and at this moment, Oppenheimer knew, I've changed. I'm now the Prince of Death, right? Because for the first time in the history of humankind, finally, and most unfortunately, humankind invented a weapon in which we can destroy the whole planet. And one of the reasons why in Europe now we are terrified about what's going on there with the Ukraine is Putin has all the weapons. And we spoke with experts on this whole nuclear thing. It's just damn luck that it didn't happen yet. Okay. Now, when you see the movie, at the end of the movie, I think it's a brilliant movie. At the end of the movie, he goes to President Truman, and I have blood in my hands. And Truman thinks, well, what a teacher you are. I'm the politician. I'm the but there's one thing missing in the movie, and I understand why it could not be in the movie, but it's extremely important for me to answer your question and to make the connection with Barbie and how to deal with all these things. 3 years before he dies, he already had lost everything, right? Which is again in the movie he was supposed to be a communist, His friends let him down. And he's invited to give a lecture at the National Book Award in New York. At that time, it was still a book of New York. It's no longer there. The National Book Award. And he gives a speech entitled The Added Cube. And the added cube is a phrase of the Gospel of Matthew, where in the King James translation, which he read, Jesus said, no worries, just trust God. We humans are not even capable to add one single day to your life, the added cube. And so Oppenheimer starts his lecture with saying, well, with all due respect to Jesus Christ, but I disagree with him. It's essential for us no longer to have all our trust in God and in our political leaders, or with any leaders which there are. We have to accept our own responsibility. And the first thing to be done is to recognize the evil in ourselves. And when we recognize the evil in ourselves, we can recognize the evil in others. And as of that moment, we can start thinking about these things. Little connection again to the Barbie movie. When Barbie realizes, I want to be a human being, the end shot of the movie is that she goes to this clinic to get the physical apparatus to be a woman. But the genius of the director is that he has a shot at Santa Monica Boulevard in Los Angeles. So he has a shot of Santa Monica. Santa Monica, as you know, is the model of Augustine. And it was Augustine, the church father, who realizes that original sin, all our trouble, relates to sex. Right? So at the very moment that Barbie wants to have the capacity to have sex, the director shows, well, my dear lady, now all the trouble, all the evil will start, right? Okay. So Oppenheimer, back to Oppenheimer, says we have to, and this is also where he said why the arts are so important, because the arts remind us what we are as human beings, about the best, the worst people, but also about our capacity to elevate ourselves and to become a human being. So the I recently wrote an essay about this because the what I are very moved is that the man who was primarily responsible that humankind now has a weapon to destroy everything. Humankind, planet Earth, is also at the end of their life gave us another instrument, and that's the instrument of the arts and the humanities. And it relates to the fact that when he was a young boy, he grew up. I mean, he was always a genius, and so he grew up in a in a very well-to-do, complete secular Jewish family in New York. And his parents brought him to the Ethical Culture School, 33 Central Park West. The Ethical Culture School, you cannot intend these things anymore, right? The Ethical Culture School. The Ethical Culture School was based on the ideas of another complete secular Jew who couldn't believe in God or in these things, but wanted to keep alive the ethical inspiration of Judaism. And his main hero was Immanuel Kant. And the main line, all those kids, including young Robert Oppenheimer, were trained in was to keep in mind what Kant writes at the very end of his practical reason. That we all human beings are in awe of the starry heaven above us and the moral law inside us. And so this is what Oppenheimer never forgot, right? While the starry heavens above us and the moral law inside us. Now, the problem, and this is why if they don't want to read the book, well, first see the movies and then you can start reading the book. Because, look, it's of course wonderful that astronomy can do, but it's part of the disenchantment of the world, right? It looks as if we are losing the wonder to see the beauty of the starry sky above us. And the moral law inside us, well, yes, that indeed demands that you read poetry, listen to music, go to the movies, uh, um, learn yourself the language of the muses, um, and realize that the main art to develop is to become a human being. And so there's so much brainwashing, propaganda, and all for, and it's all based on the business model, right? Zuckerberg, we developed Facebook so that everybody can connect with each other. Well, what eventually he did, the monster, is that young people are now terrified by how much likes they get, and if they don't get it, they sent into depression and on the verge of committing suicide. It's the business model of selling, including creating conspiracy theories, lies, and all these things. So the first bookshop. What was the first bookshop we went to yesterday?
The first book.
The first, yeah,
Casa Tomada.
Casa Tomada. Do you know Casa Tomada? I love that place, right? So there is this lady who's you have to knock on the door and then she will open the bookshop, and then she is in charge of all the books and all the books she really loves. And but it's going back to the basic things in life, right? So there is this bookshop. It's not fancy. It's not as huge and wonderful as this book, but there is an honesty in it. There is an honesty in it. There is an intellectual integrity in it. Without it, we cannot survive as a civilization. So, I would say go to those places, and spend an afternoon and drink a cup of coffee. And instead of texting, start having a conversation with your friends or even a fight with your friends. I don't care, right? But do something real. So,
I think your book, El arte de ser humanos, Rob, has, of course, it has a lot of history. It has a lot of human moments of great thinkers. It reminds us of how many things have already happened, but at the same time, other spaces, it gives us suggestions and advices to continue. It's not only an idea, a book from ideas, but also rather a book from everyday doing. And there's this wonderful chapter in which you say that there is a solution to answer that Socrates question, how to lead a good life, which is, you say, it's the search of our metaphysical truth, which is complicated because you've already reminded us of the current situation of how we relate to truth and what fanatism is, and this unidirectional relationship with truth. But then there's this opportunity for us to save ourselves without any moment forgetting that we're alone. That's the Pascal's exhortation that you answered. So I would ask you, because time is passing, and I would like you to give us some advices of how else can we look for that metaphysical. And I would like to advise the first one, which I think it's in your text, which is reading the classics.
yeah. Well, so what's the power of the classics? Um, my Institute of Latin Nexus Institute, um, with our enemies, we have a lot of enemies, we're always accused of being elite. It's one of those terrible things, being elite. And I tell my friends, I said, my enemies, because the man with whom I started this a long time ago, he said, only mediocre people don't have enemies. When you're good, you have enemies. So I consider my enemies as dear friends. I said, look, do you love soccer? You love soccer. I said, don't you think that Messi he's an elitist, right? Because he's the best of the best of the best. When it comes down to many other worlds, right? But elitism is nothing else than an expression of the best. They are the elite, right? Now, try to imagine a society in which we are no longer dealing with the best of what culture has to offer. So I said, my complaint about myself is we are not elitist enough. This relates to the classics. Why is a classic a classic? Why is in the world of classical music we still can listen to Mozart and Bach and Monteverdi, whatever, 300-400 years after they come, because it's still with life in it. You still can read the love poems of Shakespeare because it's alive in it. You still can read the dialogues of Plato 2,400 years ago because there is still life in it. That is what makes the classic, right? And so, and why, and how is it possible that there is still life in it? That's the secret, right? But it relates to the fact that there is metaphysical truth. Now, which there are things beyond this. It's not in my book, but there's another quote, maybe it's in the book, I forgot. Another quote of Kafka, where he writes that the aim in his life is that he can write something which has an eternal value. At the very moment, things can only be eternal when they are beyond the physics, right? There's a beautiful. I refer to it related to the death of my parents, and I put on their gravestone a quote from the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 4, where it is written, "And yet the dead still speak to us." But it is possible that you will pass away in your dreams or another way, you can still speak to them. So the when the whole world is when the whole world is only what we can see and what we touch, then there is no love, then there is no friendship, then there is no beauty, and then there is also no truth. And so, but this was the thing. Anyway, forget Nietzsche for a moment. That will be safe for another conversation. So again, you don't have to you don't have to have a higher education. You only have to live life. You only have to live life and think about your own life, or and follow the advice of Socrates, right? That there's a supply to self-examination to realize that there are things which are beyond the world of physics. Those are beyond the world of physics. While the experience of love is beyond the world of physics, and that there must be a truth which, because that's also what the classics do. It's a phrase by my friend George Simon. The classics question. They question us. When you read Tolstoy or Dostoevsky or Kafka or Pessoa or our great friend Marquez or whatever, those books, they are questioning us. What are you doing with your life? No, and and therefore they are, and they can only be alive in us because there is a metaphysical truth in it. I mean, it's as simple as one on one is two, basically. Um, I hope that's.
It is. It is, of course, and it has to do, Rob, with another thing that when we think of, you bring a lot of authors that, well, we already thought about thinkers, but also authors, literary authors, and to connect their work, and there are particularly three works which I think you refer to especially, which is Dr. Faustus by Thomas Mann, obviously The Magic Mountain, which is written Hans Castor, but it continues the same, as etc., and Bulgakov's The Master and Margarita. And it, perhaps it still has to do with the last question about reading classics, but I think that how you bring the importance of a literary work in a novel as a form of connecting with memory and something which you treat very kindly, which is our own personal memories and how they confront us.
Yeah, well, I mean, you read the book. I hope that everybody else will read. I mean, I on purpose I write in form of stories. And the Bulgakov story is a long story I wrote with the wife of Bulgakov sitting on the bed of the man who's dying, and then tells how they met, how they fell in love, and why he wrote the Master and Margarita, which is a retelling of the story of Jesus Christ, and also a retelling of the story of what's happening in the Soviet Union, and it's a retelling of the story about the life they are living. I'm deeply convinced about the fact that um, by telling stories, by just telling stories, what we're missing in our world are stories. And when you retell the stories again and again and again and again, and the great storytellers, of our time, the Marquez and all the others, because we have to have stories at our time. The stories to which you relate, stories to make you understand more about yourself, about the people in your life, and what it is, right? Because definitely when you're growing up, there are so many things you do not understand. You do question now. Why are these things happening to me? Why are people are behaving? Why is that they do not understand me? Right? Why is it that I feel this fear about the things around me? And then the great gift of the novel is you're not alone. You're not alone. And uh, again, I know we're moving to circles, but there's the Supertramp was one of the groups I listened to when I was younger. and they have a beautiful the crime of the century. One of their the crime for me the crime of the century is taking away the world of literature from kids. And for me, the genius of because I saw at the commemoration today was there with Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg and the others. And when the President Macron was given the Légion d'honneur to those 11 veterans, 99, 102 years old, the last of the great generation, you could hear the sound of the music of Saving Private Ryan, right? But the genius for me of a Steven Spielberg is that he uses the power of cinema in telling stories. You know, it could be the Lincoln story, it could be Saving Private Ryan. The man is a genius. And so, Andrei Tarkovsky, you know, the Russian movie maker, is the same thing. The point I want to make is that um, don't be afraid of the word elitism or something like that. Elitism is just striving to be the best and acquiring the best, as Lionel Messi has been, you know, working very, very hard to be the best soccer player on the planet of this time. And you need this best because life can be extremely difficult, extremely hard, as my mother experienced when she was a prisoner of war, right? And so to get through life, there are certain things that can help you to get through it. And that's not science, it's not technology, it's not economics, they're all wonderful things, right? But the fundamental thing you need is what is provided by acquiring noblesse d'esprit, by trying to cultivate friendships and the love in your life. And a great help is what the world of the arts have to offer.
And I think, Rob, that there's another thing that which is connected with what art can give us, which is conscience and awareness, right? And there's something which, bringing back Nietzsche, which you mentioned to your Mexican students, the advice that Nietzsche gives to know yourself, which is visit again your teachers and your mentors and basically know where you come from. And I understood it as know how you, I mean, be aware of the way you look at the world, right?
The real question is how, because we're all preaching to the converters, right? All the people here already, everything we say, I guess there's not much new in it. So how can we break through the wall and reach the people who are not coming to this bookshop every week, who are imprisoned by their cell phone or something like that, who are exposed to the crap in the United States by Fox television and the propaganda and the lies, I mean, how is it possible that in a beautiful country like Mexico, so many people are embracing Obrador? Well, the first answer is, well, they were fed up by the corruption of the other political parties, right? How to fight the corruption? How to fight? I'm not only talking about political, I'm talking about moral corruption. I'm talking about intellectual corruption. I'm talking about our fellow intellectuals who are brainwashing people with the most terrible crap and lies there are, which again is not new. I addressed it in the chapter on Emile Zola and what Bulgakov had to deal with. That's the real challenge we are dealing with, right? So I was very happy that Pino Renwaus could give me those interviews today, and I urged some of them to put on the title universities are the problem and not the solution, right? Okay, and then we have to start. Okay, let the debate begin. Another phrase of me is that the elites will not solve the crisis because they are the crisis. Okay, let them read this. They probably will be in Sunday in the Financial Times in Chile. I hope that they use these things, right? Because we have to get through all these things, right? People have to become aware of the things that so many things they want to believe in, or that they are man-made to believe in. are simply not true. And they also have to realize there are no easy solutions to life, right? That life is a difficult thing. That it, again, as I said, it can be very difficult. But don't let yourself be seduced by so many temptations which are there. Again, the whole fascist thing is a huge temptation for people, right? Because relates to the 20th question of Dostoevsky, where the cardinal is accusing Jesus being this idiot, this moron who came back and is now trying to destroy the wonderful work the church is doing, because the church realized a long time ago, and this idiot of a Jesus Christ, he never got it because he thought that people want to be free, and the church knows better people want to be happy, right? And so that's the reason why the next day he also will be. But as I read, it's a very funny story. But the truth of the matter indeed is that if you put people the question, do you want to be happy or do you want to be free? Well, let's go for that. What they do not realize is that the happiness is very short. It's a kind of drug, you know, like what is kind of we'll give them mystery and we give them miracles and we give them authority. But it's a drug. To be free is a much more difficult thing, but it will provide a certain happiness on a different level. So, but again, we're dealing with a commercial culture which wants people to be happy. We deal with a political class which promise people to be happy, right? We deal with the so-called universities will tell, oh, we'll make you happy because with us you can find a beautiful job, etc., etc., etc. So this is why I wrote this long second etude on stupidity and lies. Right? Our society is invaded by lies, invaded by lies. And if we don't want to live in a society like China, if we don't want to live in the Russia of Mr. Putin, if you don't want to live in the Saudi Arabia as it is now, we don't have that much time. Because when Trump is re-elected, when the things in Europe are going on the level and the speed as they are going now, things become much more difficult. Still, we are free to say these things, but Mr. Trump already said bluntly on television at the moment he re-elected, he will put all his political enemies in power, and he will have the facilities to do so. And it's not that long ago, right, that in this part of the world you had Fidel and you had Pinochet and all those monsters. And they can easily come back. Don't make the mistake.
Thank you, Rob. I can't think of a better way of finishing. No sé si alguien del público que tiene alguna pregunta
Comentario.
o comentario.
Okay. I try to say this in English. I write but para no olvidar, escribir para no olvidar. When I hear you, I come to the, and I think it's true, the only, that only the classes, the elite, has the opportunity to transcend, to have the eternal life. And it is to be, it's necessary to be perfect in the world for that achievement. It's a comment.
Yeah. So it's also I guess it's in the book. There is in Dante, Divina Commedia, the Inferno. Dante comes across the man who used to be his teacher, right? And he bows for his teacher. He says, "You, my teacher, you taught me how to become eternal, how to make the eternal my own." And what he refers to is not the transhumanism which we have now and that kind of things, but that the essence of life is trying to make those eternal values and love and beauty and compassion and justice and truth are eternal values because they are universal. You have to make them your own. And at the very moment you have the capacity to make them your own, or as we say, the capacity to live in truth, to do justice, to create beauty, have compassion. When you can make, or more simply, do the right thing, to do the right thing, to make the right choices, you feel a certain pride in yourself. I did the right thing. I mean, as we, as it's D-Day in Europe, it's the start of the beginning of the end of World War II. You had people who collaborated with the Nazis. They had the people who were part of resistance. Most people collaborated. Only a tiny group of people they did the right thing. Many of them paid a high price for it, but they did the right thing. Now, again, it's so important. That's what we try to do to take away from the world of the classics everything what is snobbish or that's difficult. There's nothing difficult about Plato. Plato is more easy than many other philosophers. Everybody can read Plato. There is nothing difficult in the symphonies of Mozart or something like that, right? And Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of Queen, was an opera singer at the same time, right? Those people. So, and again, the world of the classics is there because they are that reminder. They help you. You still can read the Greek tragedies, and it helps you in this awareness, this consciousness of those eternal values. And again, how difficult life is, and how to make the right choices. So basically what we are in need of is a re-education, right? A re-education, and I'm convinced that will come from bottom up. I've given up on the power elites. I've given up on the big universities. I've given up on the Shanghai list and all these crap. That's why I refer to this small bookshop and this lady who listened, and it has to come from bottom up. Young people have to realize we have to take our life in our own hands. And what I'm hoping for that my book, because it's a pretty easy read, that those kids will feel inspired and encouraged to do the right thing themselves. And that my book is only a starting point of indeed reading also Bulgakov and Camus and Thomas Mann and whatever, and take it from there. That's the kind of education people can have and feel encouraged with.
¿Alguien más tiene? Bueno, pues muchísimas gracias, Rob. Thank you very much.
Probably I can also speak on behalf of Evelyn. We feel sad not to be born in Colombia, right? I wish we could have lived here, but who knows? If World War III starts in you, we know the place to go. Please. No, and thank you. No. Thank you so much. You enjoy. Hola,